Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Politics with Sherry Jacobus. Thank you for subscribing. And if you're not yet a subscriber and you like what we do here, I hope you help us out and hit that button. We have some great discussions in the comment sections, by the way, and your input is welcome, whether you agree with us or don't agree with us or however that may go. So we keep getting into further dangerous territory with Trump. And I guess the big question now is how many Trump voters will start seeing the light before at least the midterms so that there can be a check on Trump. But just to give you an idea how openly lawless and brutal they are, we have there's a leaked memo from U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi, and it is directing the Justice Department and the FBI to compile a list of groups that might be labeled domestic terrorism. Now, remember, this is from an administration who pardoned the January 6th domestic terrorists because they were Trump's domestic terrorists. They were there to kill Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi and others on behalf of Trump and to help him steal that election, to not verify, to make sure that he could stay in office, even though he had lost decisively to Biden. So there's only certain domestic terrorists, and the definition of that gets real interesting. So there would be anybody with organizations. A domestic terrorist would be organizations based on political views related to immigration, gender, and U.S. policy. The memo, and this was obtained by journalist Ken Klippenstein, it expands Trump's NSPM-7 directive following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which ordered a national strategy to investigate and disrupt groups the administration claims could incite political violence. It's weird, though. How do they decide what political violence is? If January 6th was not political violence, I don't know what was. This is where things just get really, really dangerous. So it identifies targets such as entities expressing opposition to law and immigration enforcement, meaning the illegal, unconstitutional stuff that ICE is doing, the violence that ICE is instituting. And if you oppose that, that makes you a domestic terrorist, according to this memo. So, in support for mass migration and open borders, radical gender ideology. So, if what you believe with regard to gender does not fall into the area that they want, they call you a domestic terrorist and they will arrest you for radical gender ideology. Well, how do they know what your ideology is? Are they going to be listening on your phone conversations? Maybe your social media posts? Accessing your private email? I mean, come on, seriously, people. This is serious stuff. Or views described as anti-American, anti-capitalist, or anti-Christian, as well as hostility towards traditional views on family, religion, and morality. That means if you think Trump has no morals because he's a rapist, a traitor, a felon, a money launderer, and now inciting murder, ordering basically the murders in the Caribbean, if you think these are immoral acts, that makes you a domestic terrorist. And she instructs agencies to refer suspected cases to joint terrorism task forces for wide-ranging investigations. Suspected terrorists means if you disagree with Trump, you're a terrorist and they can investigate you. Does that mean tapping your phones? She orders the FBI to expand its tip line and create a cash reward system for informants. That means if you're anti-MAGA, your MAGA friends or former friends in your hometown can turn you in and get cash. This is serious, folks. This is serious. And it's true. This is what they're doing. This is what Trump wants to do. We all warned against this. It sounded like tinfoil hat conspiracy theories. It is now happening. It is now happening. This is what they're doing. These people are murderers. They're murdering people in the Caribbean without going through. You don't get arrested or read your Miranda rights. If they think you got drugs on your boat, or they want to pretend that your little fishing boat is a drug running boat, even though it can't make its way to the United States. But again, Trump's got to invent this so he can have war in Venezuela. It's all about the oil, because Venezuela has more refined oil than any nation in the world. This is about oil. Trump is having people murdered for oil. And if you disagree with him, that makes you a domestic terrorist. This is essentially what it boils down to. Now, if you remember, I've been talking a few times very recently about I didn't quite know what it means, and I think, but I wanted to put it out there so we can all keep it, at least in our peripheral vision, that there is a difference between these criminals who are on the Trump cabinet and staff, and some close to him politically. They are people who need pardons from him. He gets them already because he knows they're already criminals, or they're easy to get to commit that first little crime, because wink, wink, you'll get a pardon, except that you don't get the pardon unless you continue to commit crimes for him, serious crimes, over and over and over again. That's how the mob operates. And Trump is a mobster. He is a criminal. So he gets them in there to commit these crimes, right? And I've said there's a difference between these people, the staff, the cabinet, and others close to him, his family, and GOP MAGA members of Congress in the House and Senate and elsewhere. As far as we know, they don't require pardons. They are immoral. They're anti-American. They're disgusting. I can't stand them. I don't think they should be in office. I think they should be shunned for the rest of their lives. But they're not criminals. They haven't committed crimes for Trump, and they don't require pardons. That is an important divide. And remember what I've said, I don't know, sometime in the past week or so, I forget when I said it, that I wasn't quite sure what it meant, but it felt like it was going to be important. This is why I like the feedback I get from you guys, because I kind of feel like we're having these strategy sessions where you literally have to look ahead, kind of peer around corners in order, to anticipate what's going to happen next, so that we aren't caught surprised. We aren't, deer in the headlights. Because I think Democrats have done that too much. So I think we have an answer. At least this is an example of why these folks in Congress, these GOP MAGA members of Congress, are a different animal than the people who Trump owns, because they need pardons from him. And if they don't lie for him, cheat for him, steal for him, kill for him, and continue to do so, they don't get the pardon that they so desperately need. Members of Congress are different. So Politico is reporting that Congress will withhold Pentagon travel funds until it sees the boat strike videos. So Congress, both houses, are led by Republicans, Trump's same party. So this isn't just Democrats doing it. These are now Republicans in Congress are going to withhold Pentagon travel funds. Remember, Congress is in control of the purse strings. So it sounds like there are some Republicans in Congress that are starting to pull some of their power back, their constitutional power back from Trump, the dictator. So they are using its defense bill to force the Pentagon into turning over the videos of strikes against suspected drug smuggling boats off the coast of Latin America, the extrajudicial murders. Department of Defense turned into Department of War. That means you're not just on the defense. It means you are the bad guys. You are now committing these acts of war. So they're going to, the plan is to withhold a quarter of Pete Hegseth's travel budget until the Pentagon provides them with the videos. Now, that made it quietly. It was tucked into the final draft of the annual defense policy bill. It calls for, quote, unedited video of strikes conducted against designated terrorist organizations in the area of responsibility of the United States Southern Command to the House and Senate Armed Services Committee. So they want these. This is not going away. This is regarding that September 2nd strike, which we all know killed 2 survivors of an initial attack. Illegal murders, extrajudicial killings, murders. This wasn't something in the heat of war. This was done as murder. So Hegseth had said that he didn't know whether he was going to release the videos. citing potential safety concerns to the troops. Yeah. So now you've got, okay, Senate Armed Services Chair Roger Wicker, Republican of Mississippi, the Deep South. He says, after the briefing, he says he also wants rank and file committee members to see the footage. Those who have seen it says it is absolutely chilling. Some say that it vindicates the Republicans, the administration's position. I doubt that very, very much. It seems that there probably could be some weird fancy footy going on here where Republicans who want the footage released, they're still afraid of Trump, but they're hoping once it said they act like they support it and say, oh, it vindicates them. But if it becomes seen by more members, they'll be like, oh, no, it doesn't. But they can claim, well, we thought it was okay, but maybe on second thought, it's kind of like trying to get somebody else to do your dirty work. We've seen enough comments about the few who have seen the footage that it is chilling, that this is out and out murder. So it's kind of difficult, kind of hard to believe that Republicans calling for it to be seen by a wider congressional audience and they think it vindicates the administration. That's said anonymously, though. I don't think there's anybody on the record. That's just the report. They're saying that to try and urge its release. And then when people actually see it, they're like, oh, hell no. That's the only thing I can think of. Downplaying the reaction so then later you can jump on the bandwagon. So they're saying there should be a full-scale investigation. Now, our military has murdered at least 87 people in this operation since September. And Trump administration is calling them narco-terrorists, but you can't just label somebody that without any sort of proceedings, legal proceedings. You just can't. Know that the drugs are not made in Venezuela. None of them. We know those boats cannot make it to the United States. They're too small. It's a real long way to go without stopping 20 times to refuel. Somebody said 26 times. Where are you going to do that? So if this was actually done the right way, that proof wouldn't be there. Again, the Coast Guard or military from the other countries can board these boats, can check out the boats, and if there are drugs in them, they take the people in, and there is a process for this. But just like police in the United States of America, if they suspect somebody in a car has drugs, suspect it, no proof, they just suspect it, and they decide to just bomb the car and kill everybody in it. And if there are any survivors, you just kill them, you murder them. That's what this is the equivalent of. Okay? Yeah, I know it's not okay. So I think the fact that we have Republicans in Congress that are withholding travel funds from Pete Hegseth until they get those videos is a good sign. Even if they're saying, oh, well, some say that it vindicates the administration. Very doubtful. That's cover for them right now. But at least, and it may seem like a small thing. It's probably a little bigger than it seems at first glance. But this would be an example of Republicans in Congress being a different animal than a Trump cabinet and staff. Not much. They're all anti-American, anti-constitutional, immoral, traitors. Yeah, we know that. That is all still true. But again, that difference between those who are committing crimes for Trump and need a pardon and need it bad, and he keeps making sure they really need it. Again, what are they going to do? Say, I'm sorry, boss. I've committed 4 crimes for you, but I'm just not going to go for that 5th. And no pardon for you. That's how that works. The difference between them and House Senate members who are Republicans, who are still MAGA, still disgusting, but they haven't committed crimes for Trump that we know of. They're not in need of a pardon. And there's a part of them that still wants to do at least their most basic job in the most extreme situations, because they may want to slow down these extrajudicial killings and other extreme measures and horrible measures and immoral, illegal, unconstitutional measures, crimes by Trump and his administration. They may want him to stop so that they don't have to go home and try and run for re-election defending this stuff. Because ultimately, unless Trump can assure them that we have every one of your re-elections so completely rigged for you, you don't have to worry about it. Right? But they all know how unpopular he is in the country, even with their MAGA constituents back home, or Republican constituents back home, at least if the Republicans that vote for Trump and for Republicans, but don't consider themselves to be part of the MAGA cult. So again, they got to listen. They still at some point understand that they have to listen to the voters back home instead of Trump. And if they haven't committed a crime for him, I keep saying it's going to be these Republicans, unfortunately, who might be our way out of this. But I just wanted to share that one small example because, like I said, I knew this distinction was important. I just hadn't figured out how or why yet. But this is an example. So let's keep an eye on this, and I'd appreciate your thoughts and your feedback, and see if you guys have come up with some other instances, some other examples that show that divide between the people, the MAGA who need a pardon and the MAGA in Congress who don't, and share those with us. Thanks.